Hi guys, last game of the season this week. It feels like time has flown by this season and we're nearly done. Last week we had what I thought was an incredible game, and that was Galaxian, released by Namco in 1979. I cannot believe how good this game looks and plays for 1979. It was the first game to appear in full colour, and compared to its inspiration Space Invaders, I find it so much more of an engaging experience. The fixed shooter genre is not one I thought I'd have much affinity for, but after we had Carnival, and now this, actually I quite enjoy it. Once you get used to the game, it becomes almost entirely about spotting patterns and accurate shooting. If you can get those down, then you can play for a very long time, as the difficulty levels out fairly early on. When I first started playing, I was dying when I was sure a bullet hadn't hit me. I wasn't sure if this was me not knowing the game, so I filmed it. Turns out VSync was causing me issues displaying on my CRT. Once that was fixed, I could break beyond the roughly 5,000 I was getting, and ended up regularly getting over 20. I didn't have the time to push much beyond that, but I'm happy to have got mostly on top of the game. Clearing a wave without losing a life is certainly very satisfying, especially if you hit the bonuses. Compared to Defender and Robotron that have difficulty curves that really ramp up, but throw lives at you, Galaxian is quite different. There is only one bonus life to be had, but the difficulty remains constant beyond a certain point. This means the game is much more about preserving lives and consistency rather than chasing score. Certainly my sort of game. Regarding the feedback I got, it was a bit of a mixed bag. Some people really liking it, and others less so. Overall, I think it was a fairly positive week, so let's take a look at the scores. This week we had another good show, with 20 score submissions, including apologies from Pingy, who only wants to play on original hardware and didn't want to mock up an adapter for his PCB, and Nintendo Arcade, who is having back issues where standing in his cab would have been uncomfortable. We probably didn't get as many return submissions upping their score as some weeks, but that's okay. There is a big chunk of folks between 10 and 15,000, suggesting there's likely a bit of a barrier there. We have a return from Tracy and Sinisteve, who finished 14th and 11th, and a new submission from KMA, who finishes between them in 12th, with 12,500. In the top 10, we have a first points finish for Ye Olde Gamer Steve, who finishes 10th. Colin is 9th, and his enjoyment of the game increased over the week after an initial frosty reception. Mark is in 8th again like last week. I'm in 7th with 27,000 that I'm fairly pleased with, having never played this game before. Our battle between Paul and Ian remains tight, with Ian finishing just ahead in 5th. 3rd and 4th were as close as it could be. 10 Shearers set 42,770, and Big Juffer ended up just 10 points behind. Our top 2 completely separated themselves from the pack though. I think most people would have bet on Charlie Farr winning this week, being the world record holder, but this game does require a big time commitment for a big score. He put in a single run this week during his live stream and achieved 330,000, which was great to watch. Possibly still smarting after losing out in Commando, it is Andrew who takes the win this week, with an incredible 620,000. That is over 2 hours of gameplay, so it's a monumental effort, and a very well done to Andrew. Here is the histogram, and we can see that big grouping of scores on the left, with multiple people in each bin. These are our normal folks. But way out ahead of everyone are our 2 machines, Charlie Farr and Andrew. These were truly monumental performances, unsurprising from the world record holder Charlie, but another superb performance from Andrew. Week after week, he comes back and dominates these games in a competition that has a pretty decent standard, with some other excellent players. And here is the difficulty curve. I think this really shows what a strange game this is when it comes to difficulty. There is a flat line highlighting a barrier around 5 to 8,000, there's a bit of a jump, and then we have another pretty flat line showing the big barrier in the 10 to 15,000 range. Then a gradual increase beyond that, and then a very steep increase to the top players. For those that are able to get on top of this game, you can effectively play forever, but given you only have 4 lives, mistakes will creep in, and it's that which will limit progress, not an increase in difficulty compared to some games where there might be a boss or particular section that's more difficult than the previous parts. So, with 1 game left, here is the league table. There has been minimal movement with some of our newer players not playing, and points finishes similar to what we've often seen. We have a first point score for Ye Olde Gamer Steve, meaning that we've now had 22 separate points finishes this season. The only other movement has been the tight battle between Ian and Paul. Ian was only a single point behind, but finishing 1 place ahead this week has seen him move a point ahead. This one is going down to the wire. Colin and Mark are also very close for 8th place too. Charlie Farr has closed the gap with another second place finish. He could potentially take 4th with another win. But at the top, this season's winner is no longer in doubt. Taking 5 wins out of 9 games with numerous stunning performances, once again is Andrew Sick Boy Lowe. Congratulations again to Andrew, whose consistency of top performances is quite incredible, and this is well earned. Now, on to our final game of the season, and it's one of Alan's favourite games, and how could we finish on anything else? He plays it every week, and no, it's not Rainbow Islands. This is probably the only time we won't be having an arcade game in the challenge, apart from Miner 2049er in Season 1, and this week's game is China Miner, released on the Commodore 64 in 1984 by Interceptor Software. Last night, Colin asked me if this week's game could be played on his new Mr. FPGA, and I wasn't lying when I said yes, but I'm not sure this is what he was expecting. China Miner is a single-screen platform game where you have to collect a number of items before the key to move to the next level. I think you'd struggle to describe this as a good game, mostly because of the unreasonable level of difficulty. Many moves require close to pixel perfection. At least it shares that in common with some arcade games. But like most arcade games, high difficulty provides satisfaction when you're able to overcome the challenge. It can also provide frustration, which I'm sure there'll be much of this week. We'll be playing for score, and I promise we'll be back with classic arcade games next season. Given many of us watch Alan playing China Miner each week, I think it'll be interesting to put some more time into it. I hope you enjoy playing, but I'll be surprised if you do. Either way, I'll be back with the scores and final tables next week. See you then.